Hello everyone, I am Srinath.
And I'm Kavya. Welcome back to KS Chess.
Today we are going to be learning the movement of pieces in a practical way.
So let's start. So we are going to start with the pawn. Before that, let me tell you, pawn is the only piece that cannot move backwards. So now the pawn is in its starting position. When the white pawn is on the second rank and the black pawn is on the seventh rank, it means that they are in their starting positions. So the white pawn is on its starting position. So now it can move one step or two steps also. So the pawn on e2 can move to e3 as well as e4. Now let's see how a pawn captures. The pawn captures diagonally, I've told you. So I want you to answer this, whether the e2 pawn can capture the pawn on h5, the rook on f1, the bishop on d1, or the knight on d3. I give you 3 seconds for you to guess this. 1, 2, 3. Time's up. Let me tell you the answer. The e2 pawn can only capture the knight on d3 because the pawn always moves front, which means it cannot capture the f1 rook or the d1 bishop. And because it can only capture the piece in the just next diagonal box to it. And the pawn also cannot capture the h5 pawn. So, if the pawn is on e5, can it capture the e6 queen? I give you 3 seconds for you to guess this. 1, 2, 3. Time's up. So, the pawn on e5 cannot capture the queen on e6 because when the pawn captures, it captures diagonally. This was about the pawn. Now let's see how a bishop moves.
So this is a bishop. So let's see the movement of a bishop. So
A bishop moves diagonally, frontward as well as backward.
I have a question for you all. What all pieces can the bishop capture? I'll give you 5 seconds to do this.
1,
2, 3, 4,
and
and
5.
5. Time's up.
Let me tell you the answer.
Yes. It can capture
The bishop on g1
and the knight on g5 and the pawn on c5 and the pawn on c1.
So by this we have got to know the movement of a bishop. Now this is a black bishop. So let's see the movement of a white bishop. So here's the white bishop. Now if the white bishop is here, now tell me what all pieces can it capture?
I'll give you 3 seconds to find this. 1, 2, and 3. Time's up. Now let me tell you the answer. The bishop can only capture the pawn on g2.
And the bishops can move backward and forward also. Now let's see the movement of a rook. But before that, let me tell you one special thing. The bishop can control maximum squares of 13. So this is a rook. It moves horizontally and vertically. It moves all 4 sides this way. So even for capturing, the rook moves horizontally and vertically. So I'll set up a position and you can tell me which all pieces the rook can capture. Here's the position. So tell me what all pieces can the rook capture. I give you 5 seconds for this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Time's up. Let me tell you the answer. The rook on e5 can capture the knight on e1, the pawn on g5, and the pawn on e6 because it is horizontal and vertical to it. So now I have another question for you. Can the rook capture the knight on h8? I'll give you 2 seconds for this. 1, 2. Time's up. Let me tell you the answer. The answer is no, it cannot because the knight is diagonal to the rook. The rook can move a maximum of 14 squares. Now let's see the movement of a queen, the most powerful piece.
So this is a powerful queen. It can move. It will move like a bishop as well as a rook. The queen can move in these boxes. As you can see,
It moves like a rook.
it moves like a rook, and it can also move like a bishop.
A queen covers a maximum of 36 squares. Sorry, it's 27 squares.
So answer my question in 5 seconds. So what all pieces can the queen capture?
1,
2, 3, 4,
and
5.
5. Time's
Time's
up.
up.
The
queen can capture the g2 knight and the a5 rook and the f7 bishop and the d8 queen.
Now, tell me the pieces that the queen cannot capture.
In 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Time's up.
Let me tell you
The
the answer.
It cannot capture the c2 pawn and
The a6 pawn. This was the movement of a queen. Now answer my question. In 2 seconds, what is the maximum number of squares a queen can control?
1 and 2. Time's up. The answer is 27.
Correct.
What are the squares in which the black queen and the white rook can both go?
I'll give you 3 seconds.
To find this. 1, 2, 3. Time's up.
So let me tell you the answer now. Both together can go to c5, b5 and a2. Now we have learned the movement of a queen. So let's learn the movement of a knight. The jumping piece. This is a knight. It's of 3 points. So the knight is the most powerful piece in the center. So let me tell you why. Because it moves in an L shape, right? So when the knight is in the center, it can move to f6, then it can move to g5, it can move to g3, it can move to f2, it can also move to d2, c3, c5 as well as d6. So here it can move to 8 whole squares. And there's one more rule. If the knight is in the white square, it can only move to dark squares. When the knight is in a dark square, it can only move to light squares. So I'll show you how. So imagine, so the knight is on e5 now. So it can go to f7, g6, g4, f3, d3, c4, c6 and d7. So now if you observe it, the knight is on a dark square, but it can only move to the light squares. So this is one rule of the knight. Now we have seen that the knight is the only piece that can jump over another piece. So the knight is here and there are pawns here. So now tell me where all the knight can move. I give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Yes, you're right. The knight can move to C3 and A3. So now let's take away all these pawns. Now the knight is in the corner. Now tell me where all the knight can move, and also tell me how many squares can the knight move. I'll give you 2 seconds. 1, 2. Let me tell you the answer. When the knight is in the corner, it can only move to 2 squares, which is G3 and F2. Because it moves in L shape, right? So it can only move to G3 and F2. But when the knight is in the center, it can move to many squares, which is 8 squares. You see? It can move, now it's 4, now it's going to be 8 soon. It can move here also, and it can move here as well as here. So I hope you've understood this. Okay, so it can move to all these squares, and it can jump over pieces, and it can control a maximum of 8 squares, which is when it is in the center. Now there's another simple question for all of you. When the knight is in the center, is it more powerful, or is it more powerful when the knight is in the corner? Tell me the answer in 3 seconds, because it's really simple. 1, 2, 3. If you got it right, very good. If you didn't get it right, please watch this again. So, when the knight is in the center, it's more powerful because it controls 8 squares. Let me show you which all squares. It controls all these squares. But when the knight is in the corner, it controls only 2 squares, which is G3 and F2. That's why when the knight is in the center, it's more powerful. Now, let's see how a king moves. The priceless piece. So the objective of the game is to checkmate the king.
King can move maximum of 8 squares.
Position.
The king can move in
The square shown in the chessboard. So now we have got to know all the movement of the pieces very nicely. If you've not understood, please watch this video once again.
In the previous video, we saw the movement of pieces in a theoretical way. In this video, we saw the movement of pieces in a practical way.
Thank you. That's it for today.
Bye!